COP28, 6 themes. Theme number 5, scaling up accountability. Hi, I'm Michelle Sterling for Friends of Science Society, and this is the 5th in a 6-part series looking at some of the themes at the COP28 climate conference that's happening in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Now, the point of these segments that I'm doing is to give you some insights from Robert Lyman. Robert Lyman was a federal public servant for 27 years, a diplomat for 10 years. He worked on the GHG file most of his career, and he's contributed, it's a couple of hundred, 300 or more articles and reports to us to provide insights into the impacts of these climate conferences and climate policies on your life. So in these short clips, we're trying to look at some of the things that are being negotiated at COP28 this year to try and help ordinary citizens, people like myself, understand what's going on and what are the implications. So we've got a number of previous items that are posted on our YouTube channel, so have a look at those as well. Let's see what Robert has found for us. Now, of course, here we are looking at fabulous Dubai. It's a miracle in the desert. And speaking of accountability, what is the carbon footprint of this city? Well, we don't know. So scaling up accountability is the theme of this particular segment. And here we are, COP28 UAE. Are you a climate actionist? So climate actionism is their theme. And here is the president-designate of COP28, Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber, who is saying, I will hold every country and every stakeholder accountable to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius target within reach. I aim to achieve the highest ambition in the global stock-take decision. But of course, these targets are political targets and not scientific ones. And it notes here that in 1992, the UNFCCC, that should be 3 C's there, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, simply called for prevention of dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system without specifying what counted as dangerous or what needed to be done to avoid it. So the 2 degree C and 1.5 degree targets are political goals and not scientific ones. They're based on ambitious and somewhat contentious pre-industrial baseline. They were inspired by the IPCC's work and participation in structured expert dialogues organized by the UNFCCC to review the 2 degree C goal. The targets provide benchmarks to assess the ambition of countries' nationally determined contributions, which the Paris Agreement requires to become more ambitious over time to close the gap between what has been pledged and what is required to meet the agreement's goals. So again, these are political goals and not scientific ones. And the goal at COP, the conference says that it will seek to add new mechanisms for regular follow-up of NDCs, that's nationally determined contributions, implementation through the existing UNFCCC institutions. The conference will also seek member states' agreements to have additional summit meetings to keep up the political pressures at the highest levels, and the mobilization of non-state actors like NGOs, indigenous groups, and municipalities. Finally, it will seek agreement to further international coordination of regulation. So you see, if you're a taxpayer, all of this is climate conferencing stuff is snowballing, and it's going to crush you sooner or later. The factual background, as Robert Lyman writes, while the precise nature of the organizational mechanisms have not been spelled out, it would not be surprising if the UN Secretariat were pushing to have regularly scheduled country reviews of the kinds performed by other international organizations, like the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the International Energy Agency, and the International Monetary Fund. These reviews, conducted by delegations of experts from member countries, but supported and strongly guided by officials of the Permanent Secretariat, visit countries every 5 years or so to assess the progress that countries are making toward the attainment of the collective goals, and then publish reports that publicly critique each country's performance according to the UN's standard. Air miles! Yes, the UNFCCC framework already includes over 1,000 conferences and other meetings per year involving tens of thousands of officials and representatives of non-governmental organizations. So this COP28 meeting, this is just the culmination of all these more than 1,000 conferences that already happened. So, what are the prospects for this accountability? Well, Robert writes, the growth of the UN bureaucracy seems unstoppable. So, it's difficult to see what constraints may be placed on its growth until there is a significant political backlash by people like you and me against the rapid expansion of climate justified policies and expenditures. Now, one of the accountability things that is on the horizon is the accounting of every GHG molecule in the Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 chain of supply of every single thing in the world. This is going to cost you, the consumer, a fortune, and this is probably part of the negotiations going on at COP28. Counting every carbon molecule is very important to lots of people because they're going to have a job. So the Canadian Sustainability Standards Board is developing these standards to count every carbon molecule. And as Tammy Nemeth has written, beware the warrior accountants, a group rushing to finalize new global standards for climate-related financial reporting. And the objective is to consolidate the many forms of reporting. Maybe we should not report to any of these bodies because not one of them is elected, not one of them is accountable, and all of them are transnational. So these are transnational, unelected, unaccountable bodies. The ultimate goal is a global carbon tax law. And of course, big accounting firms just love that idea. Now here you see Minister Guilbeault in September was at the UN telling everyone that climate change is seen in our wildfires, and he even had the fire chiefs from Kelowna and Halifax there. And here we have Noé Chartier, who has noted that the outsourcing of federal contracts since 2015, that was when the Paris Agreement was signed on climate change, well, you can see there's just hundreds of millions of dollars gone to McKinsey, Deloitte, PwC, Accenture, KPMG, Ernst & Young. These are all big accounting and management consulting firms. So they love the idea of counting carbon molecules. And yes, the CPAs, the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, will be keeping an eye on COP. They're going to be there as well. So they show this picture of this starving polar bear, which is a ludicrous misrepresentation of what happens with polar bears. For those of you who love polar bears and want to know more, we have a great video, a number of videos actually, on our YouTube channel with Dr. Susan Crockford. We have a full 40-minute presentation with her from our event called Polar Bears and Solar Flares, a very popular event Dr. Soon also talked about the sun and its influence on climate. And we've got a series of short videos with Dr. Crockford as well, talking about polar bears and this representation by the chartered accountants of a polar bear as emblematic of climate change is really out of the Greenpeace playbook. So anyway, these are the 4 things that they think are very important. Climate action goals are still falling behind, fast tracking the energy transition and slashing emissions before 2030. They'll have to go back to accounting with an abacus. Transforming climate finance and advancing global standards, and prioritizing biodiversity, this is their typo, not mine, and nature-based solutions. So what are nature-based solutions, you ask? Well, that's where they're going to be buying and selling carbon credits at all these national parks and properties that have been set aside as protected conservation areas. So it's, the carbon markets are known as the lack of delivery of an invisible substance to no one. So accountants and people like that were supposed to protect us from those kind of boondoggles. But instead, they're all going to make money on it. So in that sense, I think we're in trouble. Because, frankly, CO2 is not a control knob that can fine-tune climate. And although this is a statement by Dr. Curry, again, I refer you to our main website. Please have a look at Dr. Ian Clark's presentation. It's our most recent past event. That's where you'll find it on our website. And he talks about how carbon dioxide is not the control knob that can fine-tune climate. So all this carbon accounting and draconian regulation and the effort to institute a global carbon tax law really has nothing to do with the science, won't stop climate change, and will make you poor. So things to think about. So we've got one more piece to do, which is delivering for nature and people. So we've got all of these items on our YouTube channel. Please have a look at them if you'd like to know more about the COP28 themes. If you like what we do, please donate. Please help us continue this work. You can just send an e-transfer, contact@friendsofscience.org. Even small sums of money are very helpful to us. We're a small group. We started in 2002. We're a nonprofit society run by a volunteer board with a handful of subcontracted services. We operate on under $150,000 a year, and most of the big ENGOs, the environmental, non-governmental groups in Canada, most of them are registered charities, so they're running off taxpayer subsidies and in many cases huge government grants as well and contracts. So, we're up against multi-million-dollar forces pushing the climate catastrophe theme, and we advocate for open, civil debate on climate and energy policies and full cost-benefit analysis. So if you like those ideas, please support our work in any way you can. If you don't have the money, you can share our material. And one thing that you might be interested in, become a member, because we have a group of volunteers who put out our bi-monthly newsletters that round up a lot of this news that you just don't see in the mainstream media. So we have CLI-SCI, which is usually about climate and energy topics, summarizing the latest climate science findings and recent events in energy transition discussions. And then we also have extracts, which typically follows IPCC politics and global climate politics. So if you become a member, then you'll be getting all of those in your mailbox. You can subscribe or unsubscribe as you see fit. And it helps us. Even though it's a nominal sum of money, it helps us. So you can become a member on our website. You can donate there, or you can just send us an e-transfer, or just share our stuff, or join us and engage in conversation on Facebook, Twitter. We're also on Gab now. So looking forward to interacting with you on one of those platforms. Thanks very much for watching. We've got one more segment to go. For Friends of Science Society, I'm Michelle Sterling.